So most people don't understand their protein need. Now, for an individual who is not active or is not working out every day, still needs about 60 grams of protein. It's unfair to say that vegetarian protein is not sufficient. It is sufficient, it's actually very good for our bodies, heavy of an inertia for our body to digest. Very common symptoms are relating to energy. People feel fatigue or hair loss.
So what are the ingredients that we should look for while picking
Look
up
at
a
the
protein
ingredient list. It should be just 2-3 ingredients tops. Pea protein, rice protein. Sometimes when you're having just grilled fish, just grilled chicken, you might be eating a lot of protein.
powder? The protein intake for an individual should be at least 60 grams. So is it better to distribute it throughout the day, throughout
Yes.
all the meals?
It is so important to distribute that 60 grams because there's something called as protein ceiling. Your body will not utilize that 60 grams for repair, for growth.
If you eat protein in the night, it doesn't suit your body. It doesn't do well to your body. Is that true?
See, animal-based protein, if you have at night, it definitely takes longer to digest.
Hello and welcome to Health Bites presented by Refm Podcast, a podcast where we serve up health tips with a side of reality check. In this episode, we're discussing and tackling the hottest debate of the nutrition world, and that is protein intake for vegetarians. So, are you getting enough of protein, or your plant-based diet just leaving you on low energy and high on cravings? If you are somebody who's a full-time vegetarian or somebody who's just switching up on plant-based food, then this episode is for you. So in this episode, we're breaking down a lot of protein sources, from protein powders to protein bars to sattu powders to those oat recipes, that breakfast recipes that keep on trending on social media all the time. And we'll tell you which of these actually work and which are just fads. So stay tuned to know how to power up your meals without missing a beat. Hi Lovneet, how are you?
Good, how are you?
In the past episode, we've discussed so many things like intermittent fasting, skincare, everything. Now in this episode, I want to talk to you about something that is like so common and such a common problem, but it's such a necessary thing also. So like protein. So protein can affect your skin, your hair, your gut health, and I think everything you do, if you're not like, your intake of protein is not fine, everything will be counterproductive. Like exercising can be counterproductive, working long hours can be counterproductive. So now that we have a clinical nutritionist sitting across with us, I want you to tell us first, what does protein do in our body?
So protein is a macronutrient which is essential. It is essential for recovery, repair, for production of hormones, enzymes. For kids, it's important for growth. For men, women, it's important for hormonal health. So many things. I think it's just a protein is something that's part of hundreds and thousands of reactions that are going on inside our body, right? So and I feel these days people do understand the importance of it. We do hear protein, protein, protein everywhere. But there is less clarity on how much protein you need to take and when and how. So most people don't understand their protein needs. Now, for an individual who is not active or is not working out every day, still needs about 60 grams of protein. And for Indians, especially vegetarians, it can be a hard goal to attain. So it has to be very well planned. If you're working out, then your protein needs are higher, and it is somewhere between 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kg body weight. That can be up to 80 to 100 grams. And if you're a weightlifter, then it's even higher to 2 grams per kg body weight. So it's important to evaluate your own lifestyle, understand your protein needs, and then distribute it evenly through the day.
So like it's so important. But there's a common belief that vegetarians are always doomed to be protein deficient. Is that true?
It is more common for vegetarians to be protein deficient. Like I said, there is more awareness now, but that doesn't mean that vegetarians cannot get enough protein and you have to be a non-vegetarian to get protein, right? In fact, more and more research is coming out that vegetarian sources of protein are less acidic for the body. They actually help you also get other vital nutrients such as fiber, other micronutrients. So it's always good, whether you're non-vegetarian or vegetarian, to have enough of plant-based proteins in your diet, which would mean dals, pseudo-cereal like quinoa, amaranth, nuts and seeds, rajma, chana, dahi, yogurt, which is a great probiotic. So different kinds of protein have different roles to play in our body. And I think it's unfair to say that vegetarian protein is not sufficient. It is sufficient. It's actually very good for our bodies. Many athletes also that I work with now are turning vegetarians because it's not as heavy of an inertia for our body to digest. So as long as you're planning your diet well and you know your numbers and you're distributing your numbers well, whether you're vegetarian, vegan or non-vegetarian, you can always have a very balanced protein diet.
So like before we get into the details of how to attain this diet, I want you to tell everybody that how to realize that you're protein deficient. What are the common symptoms?
Very common symptoms are relating to energy. People feel fatigue or hair loss. Many clients who come to me would say, oh, I'm losing so much hair and I'm having so much biotin and iron and vitamin D. And I evaluate their diet and they're protein deficient. And I'm like, if you're not having enough protein, that problem will not get solved. In their day-to-day energy levels, they'll see that the fatigue sets in very quickly. They don't feel up to doing things. There are mood dysregulation, hormonal imbalances. And once you just fix one simple macro, many things fall in place. And it was just that one foundation that was missing and is capable of fixing many problems.
So Lovneet, what are the micronutrients that get affected because of protein deficiency?
So protein deficiency can play a very important role in our gut health, in our hormonal health. That also affects the way micronutrients will get utilized. So if you're deficient in protein, but you still have enough of micronutrients, say I was talking about hair health, you might have enough iron, biotin, vitamin D, zinc. But if protein is missing, then those micronutrients are not able to do what they're supposed to do in your body. So that's why macronutrients are the foundation, the carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And they all three are equally important. And protein, especially in Indian diets, gets neglected. I think the way vegetarian Indian diet these days has evolved, it is important to consciously calculate enough protein in each meal, even in your snacks.
So like the most common sources nowadays is plant-based protein and the powder we are talking about, the protein powder.
Yeah.
So how is plant-based protein powder different from animal-based protein powder?
So plant-based protein powders are usually made with pea protein and rice protein, right? As opposed to so-called animal-based protein powders usually have whey isolates, or sometimes also combined with casein. Now, plant-based protein powders are better for people who are fighting hormonal imbalance. Even many athletes prefer plant-based proteins these days because they are cleaner. Now, with that being said, I don't want to generalize it plant-based versus animal-based. I think whenever you're picking up a protein powder, it is so important to read the ingredient list. It is so important to read the nutrient label because sometimes these tags might be misleading. When we talk about good quality plant-based protein powders, they are lighter on the system. They are usually and they come with, I don't know if you've taken protein powders, but most whey proteins also make you feel a little bit, there is GI distress associated with it, which plant-based proteins don't have.
Yeah, as you said, like I have experienced this myself. Like the moment I start taking protein powder on a regular basis, like my gut health goes for a toss.
Yes.
And it is so, like, I am uneasy all the time and there's so much bloating.
Or constipation.
Yes.
That's associated with mostly animal-based proteins. Plant-based proteins, that ways, are easier to digest. but again, it's something that you have to read the label, you have to read the ingredient list, because a plant-based protein can also be unhealthy if you are not picking the right brand.
So what are the ingredients that we should look for while picking
Look
up
at
a
the
protein
ingredient
powder?
list. It should be just 2-3 ingredients tops. Pea protein, rice protein, and none of those fillers, that's it. So if you can't recognize the names on the ingredient labels, it's probably not the best protein for you. You'll see many of the whey isolates, they have such lengthy ingredient list, and you just can't recognize what are these things even. So I would always suggest, actually, before we even get to the protein powder debate, I think it's better to first understand how much protein your diet actually has, instead of really relying on protein powders. Because if your diet is protein deficient and you are relying on just protein powders, whether it's animal or plant-based, it is going to affect your gut health. Because when we eat a meal, we are not just eating protein, we are not just eating fat, we are not just eating iron, we are eating a complex of things that nature has provided that actually assimilates and gets utilized a certain way. For example, if we are having dal chawal, it might seem like a no-brainer that, yeah, everybody eats dal chawal, but it's a complete protein. The protein to carb ratio is optimum, where proteins can actually be utilized for their amino acids. Sometimes when you're having just grilled fish, just grilled chicken, you might be eating a lot of protein. But because your carb is missing, your protein is not being utilized for its primary function. Because protein as a molecule has a nitrogen atom, which carbohydrate skeleton doesn't. So protein is nitrogen plus the carb skeleton. So whenever you're carb deficient in your meal, your body is going to actually convert protein into carb through deamination if it needs that carb. So I feel that's why I love traditional Indian diet, because it is so wholesome if you actually understand the basic principle of it. Eating fresh food, eating home-cooked meals, eating home-cooked meals in the combinations they are supposed to be eaten. Idli sambar, curd rice, dahi with paratha. I feel because it comes so naturally to us, we take it for granted. But sometimes what happens is, say, these days people are saying that, okay, don't eat carbs or eliminate carbs, and they are giving protein a higher priority. And that's when I see that the balance is again off, and then they start feeling that their energy levels are still not optimized, or they're still facing gut health related issues. They are still facing hormonal issues, especially for women, because carbs also come with nutrients. Whole grains come with nutrients such as myo-inositol that help you with that function. So it's not protein versus carbs, but it is just keeping a balance.
So like as you mentioned, it's important for to take carbs also. But somebody who's losing weight usually focuses on a low carb diet. So like when you meet such people, what do you suggest?
I usually tell them a simple fact that 1 gram of protein and 1 gram of carb gives you same amount of calories, which is 4 calories per gram. So if they are providing the same calories, it's not that carb is very high calorie as opposed to protein. It's just that they are meant for different purpose. They have different function to play in your body, and you should respect each for what function they do play. And if you know your math well in terms of how much protein and how much carb you're eating per meal, you'll understand that, and your body will respond so well to it. Your body will lose its weight if that balance is maintained day after day with consistency.
So like as you said, the protein intake for an individual should be at least 60 grams. So is it better to distribute it throughout the day, throughout all the meals?
It is so important to distribute that 60 grams, because there's something called as protein ceiling. So say if you end up eating that 60 grams in just one meal, your body will not utilize that 60 grams for repair, for growth. It will actually take only 25 to 30 grams for those things, and then store rest of the protein after deamination, convert it into carbs, then into fat, and store it as fat. So if you are not evenly distributing your protein, every meal should have about 25 to 30 grams of protein. That's the magic number you're looking for. And if you do that, you're distributing it through the day, that's when your body utilizes it very well. If you're somebody who works out, then within 15 minutes of your workout, you should have 20 to 25 grams of protein. And then for each meal, you keep that ceiling of 20 20 to 30 grams, depending on your other details. And for the snack, you can keep about 10 to 15 grams of protein. And it is so simple to do that, even in a vegetarian diet. You start your day in the morning with dahi dal chila or dahi with amaranth palak ki roti. You can add some paneer to it. Then for mid-meals, keep roasted chana, keep chaach. You can have peanut butter with apple. Fruits provide carbs, but the combinations I'm talking about. Your main meals should be a combination of lentils with a pseudo cereal. So say dal, chana, rajma with either amaranth or rice with some paneer added to it, with some tofu added to it, or edamame added to it if you want to have different cuisines. And same for your dinner. I think if you can just keep that balance intact for all meals, you start seeing the change within 2 to 3 weeks. Your energy levels are better. You feel more in balance, even mentally, because you're not constantly thinking about no carb, and you're able to sustain that kind of, so to say, weight loss, fat loss journey.
So I think it's a common myth, and you would be the right person to burst it if it's not. There's a thing that if you eat protein in the night, it doesn't suit your body. It doesn't do well to your body. Is that true?
See, animal-based protein, if you have at night, it definitely takes longer to digest. It stays in your system for longer as opposed to plant-based food. So if you are having too much protein, I'm not talking, if you're going to have like 100 grams of fish with some rice at about 7 o'clock, that's absolutely fine. But if you're out for your Diwali parties or your New Year parties, and then you end up binging on, say, a seafood platter or lamb or too much of chicken with sauces and not having carb, next morning you will feel acidic. You might feel bloated. You might feel constipated, because it does take longer for the animal-based protein to get digested through our system.
So if somebody is having that sort of trouble and they are consuming a protein source on a daily basis and the body is not able to adjust to it, what would you suggest to that person?
I would suggest reduce the grammage of the protein if you can't completely leave animal-based protein, and pair it with a whole grain. So pair it with chawal, homemade sabzi, have some chia seeds before sleeping, because that's good quality fiber, alkaline. Start your day with warm water, with some alkaline water in the morning, silver infused, like water kept in silver vessel or copper vessel. These waters are more alkaline in nature. Hydrate very well. If you are somebody who eats a lot of non-vegetarian food, your hydration needs are higher. Make sure you don't skip on fruits and vegetables, because they help you balance out the alkalinity. So if you are somebody who eats non-vegetarian food every single day for 2 meals, you should have at least 2 fruits a day and 3 to 4 vegetables in a day, which is reasonable for an Indian diet. So it's about balancing that ash that animal-based proteins leave in your body. So you have to balance it with more alkaline foods.
So now that we've talked about the diet, the routine, I want you to tell, I'll ask you about the common sources of protein people opt for.
Right.
And I'll want you to tell, are they good or not good? First is protein bars.
Not good. I'm not a fan of protein bars, because they are usually high on sugar or sugar substitutes or some fillers. There may be 1 or 2 protein bar brands that are actually good, but they don't taste so good. Leave it. Instead of opting for protein bars, just get some roasted chana, or, just keep some freshly made paneer at home and sprinkle some salt and lemon and have that, but avoid protein bars.
So you can drop the protein bar and actually have roasted chana.
Well, protein bars market themselves as very high protein, yes, but not all of them are high protein. The ones that are even high protein, they might have a lot of fillers in them that are acidic in nature. So that's counterproductive. You might feel full after having a protein bar, but if you ended up eating 20-25 grams of sugar also with it, or a lot of sugar substitute also with it, but that's not good. So it's better to keep a habit where you're eating a wholesome food, roasted chana might not give you as much protein, but it'll still give you about 10 grams of protein. Or say a Greek yogurt, depending on the brand, about 200 grams of Greek yogurt can give you 20 grams of protein. So that'll be a much better, more wholesome snack option. Having a whole egg, hard-boiled egg, that'll give you about 7 to 8 grams of protein. So although it's very convenient to carry a protein bar, but I feel that we should make an ecosystem where we are relying on real foods instead of reconstructed foods, because in a long run, that doesn't help. It might check one box of, okay, these many grams of protein, but for overall health, that might be not the best option.
Next is overnight soaked oat smoothies and all those recipes. They look so nice with maple syrup
I
on
have
it.
no
and
idea
everything.
why people think that oats are high in protein. Oats are not high in protein. They belong to cereal group. They're high in fiber. They have beta glucan, which is great for controlling sugar. Well, it depends on the kind of oats you're eating, whether it's instant or steel cut or rolled oats. So there's too many varieties there. Very few people actually use steel cut oats that have high fiber, but even steel cut oats do not give you enough protein. So you can't count that as a high protein source.
But it is marketed like so well. Everybody, I'll tell you, every fitness trainer or influencer I've seen on social media promotes oats as the protein source, like those
No.
smoothies and everything.
Smoothies, especially if they're high in maple syrup, fruits, oats, and they don't have Greek yogurt, or, I'm not a big fan of smoothies any which ways, because I think they end up becoming very high carb. There's nothing wrong with carbs, but I feel like the protein to carb ratio is completely off, and I have no idea how they are marketed as high protein.
Next is peanut butter.
Peanut butter is a healthy fat. It has decent amount of protein, moderate amount of protein. Yeah, it's a great snack. But the thing is that you need to eat a lot of peanut butter to get to, like, say, 20 grams of protein. So I wouldn't count that as one thing that will give you, complete that 20-25 grams that you need. But yes, it can be a great add-on.
And like, what combination should we eat peanut butter?
So I think peanut butter is a great energizer pre-workout. So if you are looking for a good strenuous workout, then have banana or apple with peanut butter. But it's not a very high protein snack. It's carb with good quality fat snack.
And like a peanut butter and bread, how's that?
That for protein, no.
Not nice.
No.
Next would be flavored protein powders.
Flavored protein powders, there are just so many. I think
Cookie and cream, chocolate.
Check the ingredient list. I mean, you'll be surprised to see what all is there. And shorter the ingredient list, better the product is. The ingredient list is always in descending order. So whichever ingredient is listed first, that's what is present in the highest amount. So just make it a habit to start reading ingredient list, and you'll see for yourself that whether that protein powder, which is flavored, is good for you or not.
Okay, next would be soy. And there's so many questions around it because there's so many dishes related to it.
Yeah.
Like there is frozen soy that you can have. Then there is chop, very commonly eaten. How is it?
So soy is, I think, the most controversial plant-based protein, and depending on the type of product that you're using or the process form you're using, it can be either good or it can be really bad, right? So let's talk about first the good ones. So soy that is non-GMO and in form of edamame or tofu can be actually very beneficial. But soy, which is the regular variety, it has been processed. I'm sorry to break this, but soy chap and soya katori are very high carb. They hardly have any soy flour in it. They're actually mostly wheat starch. It's made with a lot of gluten. They have too many fillers, and soy chap soy is not even the main ingredient in soy chap. So that would be the worst foods to opt for, and that's just like sort of fooling yourself into thinking you're eating protein.
And my last option is legumes.
Legumes are fabulous. They are a good source of protein. They give you good quality fiber. They're usually full of various micronutrients, zinc and iron and B vitamins. So yes, great source of protein. But they are incomplete source of protein. So that's why it's important to pair your legumes with a pseudo cereal or a cereal.
Okay, so now that we've discussed so many sources of protein, I want you to list down at least 5 vegetarian sources of protein, which are like the best and the safest to go for.
Okay, vegetarian, I would say homemade curd or Greek yogurt, sprouts, especially green moong or moat sprouts, amaranth, which is rajgira, homemade paneer, which is chena, tofu or edamame.
Okay, nice. So like since you're nutritionist for so many athletes, so I want you to tell if somebody's trying to muscle gain.
Yes.
Is it possible with a vegetarian diet?
Absolutely. Like I said, if you're an athlete, your protein needs are somewhere around 120 grams, or the math is 2 grams per kg body weight. So if your body weight is higher, it could even be higher. And to bring to that, we use 30 grams protein per meal. And we try to build that up in different meals. So in about 4 to 6 meals, depending on the weight of the athlete. And I think if you're a vegetarian, a very simple way to do that is the sources that I just listed. So say 100 grams of paneer will give you 22 grams of protein straight. So there will be a lot of paneer in the diet. A bowl of dal, about 200 grams of cooked dal will give you about 14 grams of protein. So there will be different preparations with dals. We usually, for vegetarian athletes, what we usually recommend is actually even with the roti that we are using, we try to add sattu or we try to add amaranth because these are very strengthening in nature. And when we are talking about muscle gain, of course, protein is a very important part there, but we are also looking at building strength. So we are looking at nutrients that help with building better bone density, better depending on whether the athlete wants bulking or the athlete is not looking to bulk up. We look for combinations, but the number there is easily manageable by using paneer, dal, dahi, all home cooked meals. I think what you just need to do is sit with an expert once and just understand how your math is falling in place with your lifestyle.
And since there's so many people who are turning vegan now, and I'm sure you must be having so many clients who are turning vegan, who are already vegan. So can they, manage their protein intake, and how do you do that for them?
I usually use a lot of lentils, chickpeas, black beans, rajma, pseudo cereals such as amaranth, sattu. I use quinoa. I do use tofu, soya bean if it is okay based on their blood work. And I think these days veganism has become such a trend. What I feel a bit disappointing is that many food products might be plant-based, but they're not always healthy. So a very simple formula there for somebody who's trying to be vegan for the health, or even if it is just for, for spirituality or for their beliefs, it's important to understand how to get nutrient balance, because not everything that is marketed as plant-based is always healthy. Like sugar is plant-based, but it's not healthy, right? So it's always important to understand the quality of food that you're eating and not go for food labels, whether it is vegetarian or vegan. I see so many fake meats these days in the market, and they're so unhealthy. So if you're thinking that you're going to have a vegan sort of beef patty and it's something healthy that you're eating, no, it's not. So it's very, again, it goes back to reading the labels, just educating yourself a little bit about how to read the labels and then making informed choice. And it's not difficult. You just have to sort of use your common sense to understand that stick to real foods. And there are enough options, even if you're vegan.
So like we need to, read the ingredients before we have anything packaged.
Definitely. Make it a habit. It's so simple. And you don't even need to know too much. Just have a simple rule. You don't identify it as food. That means there are too many fillers in that patty or whatever you're eating.
Yes. So like you mentioned sattu. So there's a long debate on sattu on internet.
Yes.
That is it a right source of protein or not? Because it's very high in carbohydrates, I think, right?
See, sattu comes usually in 2-3 forms. One is chana sattu, one is barley sattu, then one is chana barley jaggery mix sattu. So first, know which sattu you're buying. If you're buying like a barley-based sattu, then it's not very high protein. Chana-based sattu can give you protein, but 1 tablespoon will not be enough. Again, it's knowing the math. It's like you have to sit with an expert to understand how do you fit sattu in your diet. I feel like internet either makes a food superhero or completely sort of defames it into saying that, oh, it's not good at all. I don't think it works like that. In food, in nutrition, it's always the combinations that you're eating that matter a lot. How you're sequencing your meals, what are you eating when, is very important. Say if fish is important for you, you're having it at the wrong time. It won't help you as much it should. If you're fasting right after your workout, you're not going to gain muscle no matter how hard is your workout. You didn't fuel yourself after your workout. So I think we need to really understand that as much as food marketing makes us think that, oh, this is a superfood or this is not such a great food, we need to understand how we can fit a certain food into our requirements and lifestyle. So same with sattu. If you're eating a sattu-based roti or sattu-based like a paratha with dahi and adding some paneer to it, it can be a wonderful addition to that meal in place of wheat. So you don't always have to just treat it like a protein powder. Just because protein powder is giving 25 grams of protein, sattu should also give 25 grams of protein. There's no competition there. It has its own qualities to provide.
Yeah, a lot of fitness trainers nowadays, they have started suggesting sattu as a protein powder.
Yeah, but that's not how it's meant to be. Just because your protein powder is giving 25 grams of protein doesn't mean sattu has to. But yes, you do need 20 to 25 grams of protein after your workout. So you see, how do you combine the foods that are available to you with sattu to get to that number?
Yes. So now that we've learned so much about combinations and everything, I think I personally have a very better understanding of protein than I've had in past, and it will help a lot. Trust me. So like, now that we've discussed about like how to plan our diet and everything, what are the most common mistakes that you've seen in vegetarians when they are they make when they're planning for a protein high diet?
I think many vegetarians, when they are trying to think of protein rich diets, they rely on convenient foods, which are powders and bars. And I think that's not always necessary. I feel you should fix the basic hygiene of your meal plans and understand how you can create a more wholesome fundamental plan in your kitchen. And then, even then, if you're not able to keep up with your protein needs, then you add protein powder. But to keep your diet sustainable, I feel if you're a vegetarian, you must evaluate, reflect on your diet, get help once, and then, just stick to it.
Okay, thank you so much, Lovneet. That was such an informative episode. I personally believe it will help a lot of people who are looking out. And there's so many vegetarians in our country. So I think that it will be really helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you next.